There was a time seeing death on screen was rare. I remember when I was younger, there was a film called Faces of Death. It came out, I think, in the late 70s, and it showed scenes of people dying in different situations. I found out later that some of it was real, some of it was staged, but when you watched it, you couldn't always tell the difference. There was one scene of a man being interrogated on the battlefield. Another showed someone parachuting into water and being attacked by alligators. There was even a sequence where guard dogs tore into a thief. The footage was grainy, the cameras were kinda sorta far away, but you saw enough. Enough to shake you. Enough to leave an image in your mind you couldn't easily get rid of. Back then, watching something like that was an event. It was shocking. It wasn't casual. Now you can find worse in 3 clicks. The internet is an all-you-can-eat buffet of things you were never meant to watch, and it's served up like snack food. Scroll long enough and you'll see something that would have traumatized an entire generation in the 80s, and today it's sandwiched between a cat video and a dance challenge. And here's where people lie to themselves. They say, oh, that stuff? It doesn't affect anyone. Come on. Of course it does. The brain learns what you feed it. See enough of anything and your resistance fades. It isn't a hot take. It's biology. It's the same in professional fighting. I'm a big MMA fan, and there's a saying in that world. Be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. Think about how wild that is. What other sport gives you people who can literally stay calm while someone is trying to choke them unconscious? Most of us panic when the Wi-Fi cuts out. That's what repetition does. Train it enough times and chaos feels like home. And whether it's fighting, gaming, or just scrolling through your feed, the principle holds. Whatever you repeat becomes normal. Whatever becomes normal becomes your first instinct. And that, my friend, is where power steps in. Because if repetition shapes us, then does the people who control repetition control us? For the most part, they don't need brute force. They've got something better. And it's boring but brilliant. Something called economics. If you've got a bill to pay, you keep your head down at work, right? If your business depends on a contract, you don't antagonize the people signing it. If your career rests on a platform, TikTok, YouTube, whatever, you don't pick fights with the algorithm. And if somebody threatens you with a lawsuit, you don't stop because they're right. You stop because you're not trying to spend the next decade in court. That's how people get trained into silence. Not by being crushed, but being nudged into submission until submission feels normal. Now here's another piece we don't talk about enough. In case you haven't noticed, I'm a black man. You might be a different color. You might sit in a different neighborhood, root for a different team, laugh at different jokes. But if we both went to the same game, watched the same movie, chances are we'd be there for the same reason. We like sport. We like the story. We have more in common than we usually admit, which is why it's so effective when the powers that be decide to put us on different sides. Sometimes divide and conquer. Other times, divide and distract. Make the argument about culture instead of the rules that actually shape our lives. People who would pay the same rent, who would want the same schools for their kids, who would cheer for the same highlight reel, get turned into opponents instead of neighbors. It's such an elegant trick. Keep people separated culturally, religiously, politically, and the economic levers can keep turning without much pushback. That's why the economics piece matters so much. When your survival depends on keeping that job, or that contract, or that social media platform, you're less likely to challenge anything that keeps you where you are. And if the powers can keep 2 groups, you and I, pointing fingers at each other, they never have to worry about both groups asking the same question. Why are we being played? Let me try to put this in focus with an example that's been in the headlines recently. A late-night host makes a controversial comment. Regulators talk about remedies. A media company is pushing a multi-million-dollar merger that needs approval. Within days, a host is suspended and a show is put on ice. The public language is sensitivity. The private language is leverage and fear. It's not about team colors. It's about money and consequences shape who gets to speak and who learns to stay quiet. I don't care where you are on the planet. The real danger isn't censorship alone. It is the moment when we stop being surprised when it happens. When voices go missing and we scroll past it like it's the weather report. That is conditioning doing its work. So here's the question I want to leave with you. When it is your voice on the line, your name, your freedom to speak, do you want a world that bends to whoever has the most power? Or do you want a world that protects your right to be heard even when it makes people feel uncomfortable? Because if we grow too comfortable with the silence, we will never notice when it's our turn to be muted. And trust me, no algorithm on this planet is ever going to bring that back into your feed.